Hi, Megan. It's Yan. How are you? I hope you don't mind. I have a little music going on in the background. Hope it's not too distracting. I want to jump right into your critique. The first image, first of all, I have to say these images over the images that you showed me last week, I see a huge difference. And I know that you didn't shoot these after the critique last week, but that you were just more selective about the images you submitted to me. Um, and I see a really big difference already that I'm really pleased about. So, already with this first image, excuse me, yeah, my voice is still a wreck. With the first image, I love how you're backed up. You're right. It is such a good pyramid pose. Super flattering for mom because one of her little girls is a little bit in front of her and she's kind of in this like S curve happening. So she looks really pretty. The girl behind, she's leaned in just enough. You feel like it's a very all inclusive portrait. And I love that. I love their expressions too. It doesn't look like you just told them, like, oh, say cheese. They look happy. Like, they look like they're enjoying themselves. If this were a portrait for me, I would definitely want this printed big, and it would bring me joy every time I looked at it. Such an important connection between a mom and girls. So I love that. And I do like your conversion. I like how it's light. It's not heavy or dark, but there's still a good tonal range. Um, Good job. I don't see two overexposed bright spots, which I'm really pleased about because that was my big, gripe last week. Couple things that I would change. The main thing, the biggest thing. Now I know you said it was hard to find shade for this shot, and I understand that. So I'm not sure if my critique here would have been possible, but if it would have been possible, I would have had them seated like this, but maybe 3 feet forward away from that fence. The fact that they're so close to the fence right here, it makes, we see all this detail of the fence and even the fence beyond that instead of it having be a little bit blurred and create separation between mom and the fence. Um, I do like how you have some of the road in front because I see the depth that creates to me just a more interesting image that pulls you in because there's the foreground, the middle ground. Let me get a better pointer here. The middle ground and then the background, but I do think it would have popped even more if the background had been blurred just a little bit, which you could have done by scooting them forward. Now it looks like the light was a little bit dappled, so I can see if that would have been impossible here. I totally understand that. If the light was dappled and you couldn't have done that by scooting them forward, I don't know if you have a longer lens, like say an 85, you would have had to scooted further back. But the longer lens would have given just a tad bit more depth, I think. Let me double check and see what lens you were shooting that with. Oh yeah, you were shooting with a 24 millimeter. So is that the prime that you're shooting with? Yeah. So anytime you shoot with a wide lens like that, that also is because it's so short, it doesn't create as much depth to your image. So even if you had shot this with a 50 millimeter lens, the longer length in millimeters would have blurred this just slightly more. And then again, like I think the better choice would have been maybe the 85 if you couldn't have moved them forward at all. So the good thing about the 24 though is it does tend to, because it has just that slight bit of distortion, sometimes it makes your subjects look thinner, which moms tend to like. So, that's me being nitpicky. It's not a must, but if I'm gonna like rip this image apart, that's what I would say. Also, this little tree up here is not that big of a deal, but I maybe would consider getting rid of it if I was being fussy. Um, the only other thing, which is also hard to critique without seeing your entire set of images, is while this image feels very natural, which feels like you to me, and it has a good energy, which also to me I think I associate Megan with that. I feel like I would like to see other images from the session where they're interacting more, where there's more movement and motion happening, because I feel like there's a depth to you and a depth to your vision that I want to see translated to your images. But as far as being like a portrait that's timeless but not boring and stiff. This is amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to, oh, let's look at your straight out of camera. I love that you converted it to black and white. It gave it that timeless feel. Your crop in I thought was really good job. I see the dappled light again. Again, I want to mention I probably would have scooted them forward and shot a little bit lower. But, you know, that's me. That's my preference to create that blur in the background. Good job. Good exposure. I think you did great. In your settings, I looked at your settings. Awesome. Good job keeping your ISO low. I tend to like keep it a little bit higher because to keep a faster shutter speed, but and so then I kind of overkill, but you don't. You're very conscious of that, and I think that's a good habit to have, to keep it down, to have that nice good clarity in the image. Okay, on to number 2. Oh, see, this feels more like 100% you to me. 100% you. It is perfectly imperfect, as Tara Whitney would say. It's just so happy. I feel like with what's going on in this image, I could look at it forever. And it's not that complicated. It's a fairly simple image, but the dynamic range, she's just giggling, laughing at the camera, fell into her dad's lap, like you said. He's genuinely delighted. Sister over here, she kind of, you know, she's not a big part of like what's going on over here, but she's still okay with it and kind of maybe more of an observer and looking at the camera. I feel like you captured 3 different emotions from each of your subjects, which is amazing. And the way you position them is good. Dad's face isn't too covered. There's an immediate connection as the viewer where I just feel like, oh, I want to know this family. You know, I feel like you captured their joy, you captured the light that's in them, and I love that you did that. I love her little legs kicked up and her straight out. It's hard to shoot girls in dresses and keep their legs together, so because that can be tricky. So, bravo, good job. Again, great conversion. I love it. I love that your darks aren't too dark so that they're black and you can't see any detail, but you don't have blown spots either. It's a little bright on her shirt here, but not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. Honestly, if this were one of my images, I would be pretty thrilled. One tiny little thing, it's not a big deal. Your horizon here is just a tad crooked. Which you can easily fix with a crop if you wanted to. It's a nitpicky thing. It's not, you know, a super big deal. But I'm going to show you maybe how to fix it if I can crop it better. And that's a little too far. But the purpose in doing that is kind of to get your lines straight, a little more straight. And it looks straighter to me from here, this point to this point, instead of slanted slightly down on the left. So nitpicky, that's my crop. That's the way it was originally. Now the little bit of a tilt, it might even add to the energy. So that's just a preference call on your part. But honestly, like, I hate to disappoint you, but I love this image. I'm having a hard time tearing it apart. I love the hair in their faces. I love Dad. They just feel so intimate and it feels so much like you. So bravo. Let's take a quick look at the SOC. Great exposure. Beautiful. This could have looked good in color, but I prefer the black and white, so I think that was a good call on your part. And the nice even light, even shade. You know, one thing that might be helpful to you for me to say, you're shooting in shade, which is safe and good. There's nothing wrong with that. No criticism here. But I feel like you can push yourself to shoot in a little bit more interesting of light. I would look around if I were you and look and see what kind of light speaks to you. Is it this even kind of safe shade? Or is it, you know, glowy backlight? Is it that side kind of window, sort of dramatic, moody light that Becky Earl shoots in? What is the light that speaks to you and makes you excited when you see an image? I'd like you to think about that and kind of get back to me and see if you can incorporate that to your other images that you shoot for this next time. On to 3. Okay, this image, cute image, really cute. I'm sure Mom and Dad loved it. Good job with the busy porch. This one's cropped a little bit tighter, kind of like your ones from last week, but like you said, you had a busy porch, so it was kind of necessary. And yeah, I'm fine with the blurred parents in the background type photo. But if you're doing a photo like this where the parents are blurred in the background, I find it's helpful to not have them looking at the camera like your foreground subjects are, but to have them interacting with each other. And that way it looks a little bit less intentional, it looks a little bit more natural. So if you would have mom and dad with their foreheads together, or dad kind of smiling at baby, doing something different so that this